So it is the next night, and so what I did was I went ahead and I lightly coated everything in here with this blue wheel bearing grease. So while my hands were still covered with grease, I went ahead and put this wheel bearing grease on the spindle, as you can see here. So I just went ahead and pretty much caked it on there. I cleaned it up and caked it on there. And now we are ready to take the wheel hub assembly and place on the spindle, which is on the axle. So before I do that, I'll go ahead and show you how we will be putting on the hub with these jam nuts right here. So these are the jam nuts that we'll be torquing down. But the first one that we'll be putting on, let's see. So there is a section on the spindle. Let's see if I can get you in there. There's a section right here. There's a slot where that tab on this washer will go. Obviously didn't clean that very well. But that is where that tab on the washer will go. So there's the tab. So that will go on first. Then we take this, get that started. And the reason I'm showing you is because it's going to be kind of difficult whenever I get the hub on. I do have my nice camera set up, but I still want to kind of show you how it's going to work. So then after that gets torqued down to 50 foot-pounds and it gets backed off and moved, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But so this will be going on next. So I don't have it on very far, but you'll get the idea. So this will go on. See, it has a See, this has a slot on it also. So that will go right there. And then there is a second jam nut, spindle nut, whatever you want to call them. It'll get torqued down, and what you'll do is you'll torque it down to 50, back it off, spin the hub, re-torque it back down, and then you'll actually rotate it 90 degrees, and wherever it lands, you will actually hammer down this tab to hold it all in place. Of course, it'll be tightened up further down, and I'll be tightening it down. You do have to have a special socket to go on. This one, this Dana 60 came with the 6-prong jam nut, so that's what will be tightening it up. Because you really don't want to be hitting this with a chisel. I've seen some people do that, but you definitely don't want to. You can if you must. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get the hub assembly over here and get everything torqued down the way it should be. Oh, this is very heavy. I gotta press record on this camera. Alright. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna slowly start working this on. There we go. And we'll push that bearing back in. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get some wheel bearing grease on this washer here, just a little bit. Go ahead and push that all the way in. And then I will be taking my first jam nut, put a little bit of grease on it, and go ahead and get that started. So then I'll be taking my socket just gonna go ahead and start tightening it up just till it gets snug. And what I like to do as I'm tightening, I like to just give it a couple of little spins just to make sure nothing is binding up or anything weird like that. So it may take a second. Alright, so there's 50 foot-pounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start spinning. Now I'm going to back it off. So now that I've backed it off, I'm just going to start spinning it some more, front and backwards. There's no binding, no weird noises, no grinding. So now I'm going to retorque it back to 50 foot-pounds. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing. Just start spinning. Now that it's torqued back down to 50 foot-pounds, I'm going to back this nut off 90 degrees. So just make sure you know where your torque wrench is and go 90 degrees. So what I like to do is I like to make it just go straight up from here. Alright, that's 90. And do some spinning. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put this lock washer in. So I'm just going to find the groove right here and line it up with the groove on the spindle. Just like so. Then I'm going to take this jam nut right here and put on top of that. So this outer jam nut, it's pretty much the same as the first one. We're just going to torque it down to 50. There's 50 right there. And so what you want to do, let's see if I can get y'all in there where you can see. So that locking washer has teeth on it, and that jam nut has grooves on it. So what you want to do is you want to tighten it up just enough to where, see how this one's very close to meeting the lock washer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten it up just a hair more so that I can take a chisel, a cold chisel, and knock in that tooth to the insert of that jam nut. That way it holds everything tight. So I'm going to go a little bit more than 50. So now I'm going to take this cold chisel and I'm going to push in to this slot right here. Yeah, that ain't going nowhere. And I'm gonna push up some of these other teeth right here. All right, so the first thing that you want to do is get this out of the box, you know, make sure all the parts are there and everything like that. And what I like to do is I like to, you know, I do already have this coated with grease. I like to just put a light coating of grease on this. You don't want to do too much grease on this because you want it to separate like it should, but you also don't want it to get dry or anything like that. Because my thing is, where there's not grease, there's going to be dried mud and water. So I'd rather have grease on here. But so you can just do a light coating, about like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this started right here. So the first thing that I do is I go ahead and get this O-ring on. Snap rings, I mean. They will get you. This is not how you use snap ring pliers, by the way. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get this super aggravating piece of metal in here. And what this does is just keeps it from going walking side to side. Just like that. Now I'm going to take the actual cap itself, make sure the spring is on there. Let's see. And I'm also going to take some grease, just a little bit, around this edge right here. That way no water or mud or dirt, anything will come in. I'm probably doing this overkill, but I think this is how, this is pretty much what the mud truck guys do. All right, so now we'll put in that O-ring. Make sure that's all greased all the way around. I'll put in just a little bit right in there. Alright, so what I do is I go ahead and get my Allen screws ready to go in. And you just line it up. I always start with the top. Alright, now just get all the grease off of it. There you go. So the next thing that I'm going to do to this axle is I'm going to get this pinion seal in and the pinion yoke on. Whenever you start with pinion seals, you want to make sure everything is lubricated and clean. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some gear oil and just put all on this seal. That way whenever it's being punched in, it's not wanting to tear this seal right here, because then it would leak everywhere. Just making sure it's nice and lubricated. And I'm also going to do the inside while I'm at it. And then I'm also going to do in here. I'm also going to do inside of it. That way it's lubricated also. Alright, so make sure that you put the seal in correctly. You really can't mess it up. So what I'll do is I'll take my rubber mallet and I'm just going to try to get it started this way. Alright, so as you can see, I've got it perfectly seated. So now what I'm going to do is get the yoke and go ahead and get it put on. So here's the yoke that I'm going to be using. I'm just going to make sure that everything's clean on here. And I'm going to take some more of this gear oil and pour where it'll be meeting the seal. That way I'm sure it's not going to damage while it's being pushed in whenever I tighten it up. Make sure that's got plenty of lubrication on it. Alright. So make sure you put the washer on there and the nut. So the next thing that we're going to be doing is getting that Yukon hardcore diff cover on. This is pretty straightforward, but I'm going to be trying something a little different. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in a second. Oh yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some brake clean. Spray all right there. And what I always do is I put my old diff cover on the floor. That way it catches any nastiness that's coming out. Oh gosh, that's strong. And what I like to do is I like to go over just a quick once over with a wire wheel. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses. Go over it one more time with the brake clean. And I just like to do a once over on all my internals here. Alright, so what I'm going to be doing different is I was actually watching Dirthead Dave at the Dirthead Shed. He was saying whenever you use one of the gaskets, the paper gaskets, you actually use grease. So we're going to try that out. What I normally do is I put RTV all the way around, but like you can see, whoever had this axle last used RTV, and you can see how ugly that is on here. But I've never tried using grease on here, so that's what we're going to do. I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly coat this gasket all the way around. I'm doing it on both sides kind of equally. This may be a complete fail. I'll let y'all know if it is. But also, while I'm talking about it, if you don't follow Dave Chappelle or Dirthead Dave on YouTube, you definitely need to give him a follow. He is one of the absolute best fabricators in the four-wheel drive world. And you can find him at the Dirthead Shed on YouTube. But he is a madman. But anyway, so I got the paper gasket all lubed up with grease. Like I said, I just did a light coating all the way around. And I am going to put a light coating on here. And I would just like to say this feels so wrong, putting grease on here. I don't know why. Because normally whenever I'm cleaning this up for RTV, this is always having to be like super clean and not have anything like grease on it. Alright, so I got all of the Allen bolts torqued down to spec. Everything's looking good. I did have a little grease pop out from the sides, so that is definitely reassuring me that everything is nice and tight and sealed. So now I'm just going to take a rag and just go around just to make it look all nice and pretty. So I just wanted to give you an overview of what this axle looks like now. This thing is looking awesome. I'm so excited to get this underneath the Cherokee. But leave a comment if you think this wheel bearing grease in the paper gasket is going to hold up. I'm definitely curious of what y'all think. I've never done it before, and honestly I'm just curious. This is more of a science experiment than anything. Alright guys, that's going to wrap up this video. I really appreciate y'all watching me work on the Dana 60 that will be going in the old Cherokee. But if you have any questions about anything on the build, please leave in the comments. You're more than welcome to leave a comment, a question, a concern of yours. And I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to my channel to make sure that you don't miss out on any other updates for this build. I will be doing the brakes next. I'm waiting on a small part on the bottom of the caliper that actually holds everything on. I ordered that, so it should be here sometime this week. So I'll be doing a video on that. I'll be building my own steering, and then I'll be, putting it underneath the Jeep. So make sure that you stay tuned for that, and I really appreciate y'all watching.